and he's written that book, and it's a short book, a very short book, but I think it's outstanding, an outstanding book. So if you'd like me to send you a copy of that, I mean, and again, you can call me back anytime. Matter of fact, I want to give you my cell phone number too, because it's a much better way to get a hold of me.
All right, I appreciate that.
Do you have a pencil?
Hang on a minute.
Okay.
All right, what's your number?
It's state area code 217, and it's 827-3366.
Okay.
All right. Well, I have enjoyed talking to you, Ash. And again, you've got great questions. And if you want to get together just to explore or to ask, and don't be afraid of asking me the hard questions. I mean, there are some questions that are really hard to, and I'm talking about in terms of, why did Christians do this? Why do they act this way? What about this guy? I mean, there's some people who, don't reflect well on who we should be, and I can answer. I can't answer those questions ultimately, but I can give you my perspective. I can share my heart with you about those things. So, like I say, don't hesitate to call me. Okay?
All right. And, well, since you're not afraid of the hard-hitting questions or anything, there are some churches I've noticed throughout my life that try to get really politically involved.
Yes.
I've noticed. And that causes a lot of, complications.
I agree with you completely. It's something that I don't talk about. I have my convictions, and of course,
right.
All of us do. And I think it would be disingenuous not to vote for a candidate who would agree with your convictions.
Right.
So I don't think that there's anything wrong with talking about the moral issues of the day, because a lot of times in politics, those are the kinds of issues that generate the most heat. They always do. And I think it's good to actually talk about those, but ultimately, politics is not going to be what transforms our nation. It's not what's going to bring blessing to people. It's the transformation of individuals' hearts. People becoming what God designed them to be that will ultimately bring the greatest blessing to our nation. And that's what I major on. I major on the good news. I major on the evangelion, the good news, the gospel. That's what I try to major on. But also, I have to be honest, and I have to say, well, if there's a hot button issue that the Scriptures deals with, then I have to be willing to deal with that too. Not from a political perspective, not to try to win an election, but to try to be a blessing to people, to try to help people understand this is really the truth. And ultimately, when we ignore the truth, and that's true in a lot of different areas of life that have nothing to do with Christianity or religion, when we ignore the truth, there are consequences. And you could say that's true about somebody who is let's say you love to hunt. If you ignore the truth about the danger involved in handling guns, you can kill yourself.
Right.
That's a serious consequence. So, and I think that there are consequences of ignoring truth in any area of life. Sometimes the consequences are almost inconsequential, and sometimes they're major. But so yeah, if it's an issue that the Scriptures addresses, I'll talk about it. Talk about what the Scriptures say about it. But I don't do it for the purpose of trying to win a political election. I think that's a losing proposition if that's where we put our hope. I don't think that's going to bring ultimate hope. I think it's necessary to have an orderly society, but that's not where my ultimate hope is. So that's a great observation, because I've seen that very same thing. And I've talked to other young people who have had the same concerns and troubled in the same ways, who are Christians, and they're troubled by some of the things they see.
Right.
So great observation.
Okay. Last question I have. I got to go in a bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question, and I always save this question for last when I make these calls to churches to get their views on things and understanding on why they are a Methodist or why they are an evangelical or whatever. Because I don't really see very many people talking about this on platforms like the internet or even television. I don't see anyone really talking about Christianity, and if they do, they get less than 100 views.
Yeah.
Maybe none. And
you're talking about using technology as a medium of communication.
Right.
Yeah, I see. I probably live in a different world. I do see quite a bit of that. I subscribe to certain blogs, podcasts myself, so I know there are people that are using it. I'm not sure that we're using it effectively, though.
Right.
There's one, and I can't think of the site. I can think of the number. There's a number that people can call. I hear it occasionally on radio programs. I think it's 1-800-MEDIUM. I think it is. And basically, it's a ministry that is designed to answer the kinds of questions that you have. For people who have questions about religion, about God, and that's one that I see in some secular venues more than others.
Right, because we live in a country right now where 31 states plus the District of Columbia have marriage equality now.
Right.
And I do not see anybody talking about it. And if they do, they're all for it. And it seems rather unusual to me that we live in a republic with a democratic process and we have free speech here, but yet there's no dissenting voice. And if there is, it's not on a media platform. It's not on...
Great observation.
Right. And I find that rather strange because it seems like as of the last, I think since August of this year, dissent has kind of been, I don't know, it's like it's extinct.
Yeah.
And I'm not giving my personal views on that. It's just an observation as someone who has took a little bit of journalism.
I exactly what you're doing, and I think you're right about that. I think that there is maybe a reluctance to address those issues because of the danger of being misunderstood.
Right.
The danger of being misunderstood as a person who really, really loves people. And part of that is because of what I think are, in some cases, false accusations. I also know, and I've seen this myself, I've witnessed it myself, that the secular news media is oftentimes slanted. I could give you very specific instances of when I knew the whole story, and I saw the secular media take a slice out of that story and present it.
Oh, yes.
Totally twisted. It totally twisted the truth behind the story. And that troubles me, and I'll tell you one of the reasons why it troubles me. My grandfather, German grandfather, my mother's father, was a Nazi. Germany was in horrible condition when Hitler took over, and that's one of the reasons why he was able to capture the imagination of the German people, and partly because of the Treaty of Versailles.
Right.
They had been decimated. A very successful, prosperous country had been devastated, and people wanted to see that prosperity restored. Hitler promised that, and he was very, very charismatic, very dynamic, and so people started following him. And in the early stages, and of course my mom didn't know what his plans were. She didn't know what was going on. My grandfather eventually learned, and he even he would have been executed by Hitler's men if they had known what he did. He was supposed to go shoot a defector. He was actually the head over this